Okay, here we are, ready for another Kinky Question of the Week. And today we are talking about how do you spot a fake online? This is a big topic, right? Like, this is huge because there are so many spammers and scammers of every stripe infiltrating every site known to humans at this point. I mean, we spend time deleting people off of Dating Kinky specifically. Although, to be fair, I usually delete them after I mind their profile for entertaining lines that I could then use to post on social media. One of my favorites is the one that said, I am dominant and my nipples are punctured. I'm assuming pierced was the... But, that person was also a model and they wanted to be called a baby girl. And, all of the flags of, just not knowing the words that they were throwing into the word salad.
I'm sitting here like dominant with pierced nipples. Welcome to the club. Like, I'm trying to figure out where we're going with that. I mean, but
they're like, I'm assuming pierced. They're punctured.
Yeah, punctured. Yeah, that could be anything. That's true. Yeah, I mean, somebody like come up and run a staple through you, it. Yeah. I kind of want to see. Yeah, my favorite thing to say to people on the internet is "Pixar, it didn't happen." It's like I'm gonna need some video or photo evidence, or else you're just slandering or telling lies, or plus it's just hearsay. Outside of hard evidence, it's just hearsay. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. How to spot a fake? So there's a couple things. Like, one, how much energy do you want to put into it? Because like Nikki was saying, it can become a full-time job. There are people who do nothing 40 to 60 hours a week, but try to find fake. That's not real profiles. That's not a real post. You're not actually emailing this person. You're just trying to see if you can get information out of them, like things, and that's the interesting thing that is big and vast as the worldwide interwebs are. It amazes me that there are some people who have nothing better to do than to try and spam hundreds and thousands of people. If you ever get a friend request on Instagram that includes like 68 people, yourself included, and you have no idea who any of them are, so who the fuck's got the time to sit here and do this? Like, it's crazy. Why even bother? So one of the things I've started doing, especially recently, as I do more and more like speaking engagements, and basically I'm getting me and my brain out there more, is I tell people, listen, if you're going to message me on one of my social media sites, when I give it to folks like are in the audience, something like that, let me know where I know you from. Because if I get a random message from somebody I don't recognize, I will slam a delete / spam button so fucking quick. I don't have time for it. I really don't. Because like we've talked about before, I have a whole lot of things going on in my life. I'm quite a busy person, and that's not a brag. It's just like I don't have the time to sit here and try to determine somebody else is real. Not to mention, I'm old enough to remember back in the day when it took several minutes for a photo of you to upload before you could prove who you really were or something like that. And even then, that wasn't really proof. Nowadays, it's way too easy for people to send pictures to verify themselves. So if I get something that's got no picture from you, I mean, could be, dating app, website, stuff like that. Not necessarily that I'm dating or something. It's just, who are you? And I will flat out ask, but I'm one of those people that did not have a being blunt. Who the fuck are you? Or I'll say things like, do I know you? Where do I know you from? How did you get this message? Usually the response to that will tell you something. And especially if there's no response to that, that tells you a whole lot too. So, there are ways you can go about kind of testing it out. There's a lot of it I just won't bother with. You've got, with me, if I don't know who you are, especially if it's on the internet or on a computer or something like that, because I spend so much time sitting at a computer, either through school or work or talking to people, via computer or virtual thing or something like that. If I got something in either on a dating app or a website, page or FetLife or something like that, and I start getting messages and whatnot, you got about 8 seconds for me to figure out who the fuck you are. And if I don't delete, goodbye, slam, spam, I got no time for it. There's enough people for me to talk to on a regular basis who have readily identified themselves that I don't even care anymore, you know. So yeah, I don't bother, not to mention people just lying, or just want to have some sort of explicit conversation with any rando whatsoever. So they'll just start, people just start sending me pictures. Sometimes I look at them if I'm interested, but why? Why, really? Or
Right.
since I'm a Dom who's connected to subs online, what sometimes will happen with me is someone will message me wanting to know all about her. Delete, hang up. Why? It's I'm not here to help titillate you by answering the question what you want to know.
Yep.
But does she like this? Delete. Yeah, we're not even going down that road. I will not waste the keystrokes on you. So yeah.
I think that the point that you're making there is 100% valid in that, and I will mention a couple of things about how to spot fakes online. However, to me, it sounds like what you're saying, and what I deeply agree with, is that it doesn't really matter if they're fake or not, if they're not engaging you in the way that you want to be engaged. And if they're engaging you in the way you want to be engaged, for me, it doesn't matter if they're fake or not until we get to a point that I'm like, okay, in order to take the step, I have to know that this is a real human that I'm going to meet. Most online engagements, it doesn't matter a whole lot. To spend a couple of hours, like if you're the type of person who just likes to chat with people online, does it matter who they really are if you're just enjoying a chat and having conversation, right? It doesn't. And I would dare to say, maybe some of you don't know this about me, but I have been online for a very long time. I started online in 1994. I started my first business online in 1996. I have been on chat boards and message boards and live chats and whatever. I moderated them. I have adminned them. And some of the best, quote unquote, and this is taking us way back, cyber scenes, like on those chats between two people who weren't who they said they were. And I knew this because I was the admin. I have actually seen lesbian scenes chatted out between two dudes who came in under girls' names for a lark, right? Like, and it didn't matter to them. It didn't matter to the people reading it. It happened and they got their rocks off. Who cares? Okay. Now, that said, if you're trying to actually make connections with genuine human beings, there are a couple of ways to spot a fake. One, if it's too good to be true, it probably is.
Good point.
Simple. If it sounds too good to be true, if the little alarm bells are going ding, 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 ding in the back of your head, verify. Get a phone call, get on video, exchange photos that like say, I hold up something that says, hey, Zach, this is Nookie, and it's March 24th, right? Simple. On Dating Kinky, we're actually, we're working on chat right now, but for Plus members here any day now, you'll be seeing audio and video chat. So that's a great way right there. And then not long after that, we'll be instituting the site-wide photo verification, which is essentially, this is the photo I want people to see, which is, hi, I'm pretty, look at me. And then this is the photo that nobody but the admins, i.e. humans, will see, that will have me with a code written on it showing that I'm the same as that photo, right? Super simple. So this can be my Instagram professional shot over here. That's the one people will see. And this can be the, okay, I'm verifying it in my PJs after a night of no sleep, right? Like that's something that we're going to be doing. And that was really popular when we had that up in the prototype. We will also have the option for Plus members to video verify with a 20-second mutually exchanged video clip with non-Plus members. So anybody interacting with a Plus member will be able to verify if you choose. It's not a requirement, but we'll be able to video verify. And we're putting all of these things in place in preparation for our mobile apps coming out, because those will be live chat with audio and video for Plus members and video verification. So those are some ways to do it. But if you don't have Dating Kinky, there's other ways you can do it. You can use Skype. You can use Google Voice or Google Hangouts. You can use Telegram. There are always ways to verify. And if you're worried about your privacy, we actually have up, and I'll include in the show notes, we actually have information up on our site about how to be private when exchanging photos and how to be private when exchanging videos. For example, for those of you who are actually watching this on YouTube, setting the video so that it doesn't show above your nose line can help keep you private, but it also shows that you're actually a real person. Just like that. Super simple. That's one way. Wearing masks.
That video angle, that works.
What's that?
I said I'm a fan of that video angle. That works for me.
Oh, well, that also, for those of you, again, who are not watching this on YouTube, it also shows off the cleavage quite nicely if you happen to have breasticle the way that I do. So there's a lot of options out there for both verifying other people and for proving your own identity online. And honestly, when it comes right down to it, even so, there are going to be people who can get on video, can get on audio, but are professional con people, right? Like you see this a lot. I mean, there are people who marry two people at the same time and somehow manage to live that life. So from that standpoint, what I would suggest is A, have really good boundaries. B, if something sets off your spidey sense, pay attention. And don't do anything that you would not do for this person based on who you know them to be, even if you found out in 5 minutes they didn't love you, they don't even like you, they're just using you, right?
No.
And I live my entire life like that. You know, if my pet asked me to do something, whatever I chose to do for him, and understand we're 7 years into this, 7.5, everything I would choose to do for him would be because of the value he's already brought to my life, not because of the value I think I will get as a result of doing that. So how to spot a fake? If it's too good to be true, it probably is. If they don't want to share video, they don't want to share photo, if they don't want to get on audio, we've had people say, I don't have access to a camera, because we verify all of our volunteers in both video, audio, and also we do wallet information, because if somebody's going to have access to sensitive information, we have to have their NDA signed, right? But we've had people say that they couldn't do that. They can't get on video. They don't have a camera. In this day and age, you can't take a selfie or have a friend snap a selfie for you. Yeah, you're not who you seem to be. It's that simple. Any additional thoughts, Zach?
No, it's other than the fact that it sounds like there's an sort of internet safety workshop in the making there from that, because I mean, all that is very, very important for a bunch of reasons. You know, that online safety stuff is important. I mean, people do copy, steal, screenshot all the damn time. You know, I mean, you've been on the internet long enough to know people just wanted pictures. They just want you to send pictures. And it's like, what do you need pictures for? You know, and it's like, okay, they just want you to send pictures of stuff that they can have for their own sort of, you know, people are forever stealing things. And so, and I hate it, the fact that the more we're able to kind of, traverse distances and connect with people, although I don't necessarily know that it's human connection, but rather communicate with people. There are always people out there up to, some sort of nefarious deeds that are just willing to fuck around with it. And I mean, I hate that, but that's the reality of it. So yeah, you got to kind of protect yourself and just be aware. But yeah, I totally agree with Nookie. It is way too easy to get a photo, listen to a voice message. For crying out loud, you can be talking on Messenger and just hit the button and record your voice saying hello, verifying yourself. It's not that to do these days, to kind of verify who you actually are. And otherwise, don't waste your time. It really is.
If it feels hinky, move on.
Yeah. That's the other thing, is definitely trust those instincts. They're there for a reason. Whether it's actually an instinct, if something just doesn't feel right, trust it and quit trying to talk yourself out of that feeling, because it's okay to feel that and move on. Definitely. So, yeah.
So, Zach, you mentioned, and this is, I think, something important. You mentioned it's easy to steal photos. So that's one of the things that on Dating Kinky, we've gone that direction as well, to protect you from your identity being taken, in that all of the photos that show on Dating Kinky in profiles have a light watermark. Now we'll be removing that for Plus members who set the preference not to show a watermark. But the watermark is there specifically so that if somebody tries to take a screen capture or download a photo from Dating Kinky, they can't download them. They'd have to screen capture. But that watermark will show they use it someplace else.
Yeah.
They stole that photo.
Right. Yeah. Good.
So.
And I mean, and that is helpful. I mean, and in many cases, even the watermarks don't stop people from stealing, but they'll at least know, listen, that this didn't come from them,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Exactly. And just as an aside, Ryan, if you could make a note, when we're exchanging photos via chat and that consent message comes up, I think it should also mention something about how the photos exchanged in chat are not watermarked and therefore not protected. So that's something to keep in mind as well. Just to let people know, hey, by the way, think through what you're sharing with people online.
No, absolutely. Definitely.
So
and that's it. Just be careful. Yeah. Just be careful. Use your head. So.
Oh, we did good. I think this is brilliant.
Yeah.
So finishing up that question of the week. Thank you, Zach.
No problem.
And here we are with another kinky question of the week. How you doing today, Zach?
Doing great. Nooks, how's it going?
Fan-fucking-tastic.
I always get nervous when you smile that big. It's like, oh shit, what is she actually planning?
Probably a good plan. It's if your spidey sense is tingling, it's probably a reason for it.
Yeah.
So,
you just have that reputation for being someone who is well earned, by the way.
I am a paragon of sweetness and light.
Okay. Moving on. Wow.
So anyway, today's kinky question of the week is, how should I handle protocol or power exchange in public?
Interesting. That's a fun question. Gosh, there's always times I don't listen to him anymore, but if you ever listen to the Dan Savage podcast, whenever someone calls in and asks a question, he always wants the caller to leave a number so you can come back and ask them something, like get a clarification. There's a part of me that kind of wants to do the same thing. It's like, man, I have questions for the questioner, but taking it at face value, the first word that comes to my mind is consensually. It's not cool to try and make somebody be beholden to some protocols in public for a couple of reasons. One, if they didn't consent to it, that's an issue, because anybody who knows me by now, my freaking website is warrior.com. If you're not doing it consensually, you shouldn't be doing it. But two, anybody who may see the various ways that you're playing with protocol didn't consent to it either. And now that's not to say if you go to a kink function, a party, a dungeon party, or something like that, for the most part, people who enter a place like that at some point have consented to what they may witness. But if you're just out in a restaurant, okay, or going to dinner or going to the zoo and there may be kids around or something like that, the way you go about consenting, or rather engaging in those things in front of other people, the general public has not consented to whatever you may or may not do. I mean, there are muggles out there and you might violate their delicate sensibilities. Now, there are those who think that the most friendly when it comes to muggle people, and that's not the case, but I do respect consent. So I would say you should handle your protocols consensually, and you should have those conversations and those negotiations before comes up. I have subs in my life, and some of them are higher protocol than others. And we talk about those things. We talk about forms of address, ways of being, talking, dressing, and things like that. And the fun ways to play with it. There, you can do incognito protocol stuff in a way that looks, for all the world, for lack of a better term, and I hate this word, normal, but is within the boundaries of your protocol agreements and things like that. There are ways to have somebody marked or collared that are very subtle, but it would be clear to you, for example, because ultimately your protocol and power exchange is between the two of you. But I mean, I've got friends that will go out in public, and if they're a male female total power exchange couple, he'll order for her. They may have a discussion, but he's the one that orders. Period. That may be strange or off-putting to some servers, but most professional, wait staff have learned to just fucking run with it. So there are ways to go about doing things. You just kind of have to be careful, but it's always going to be consensual. And I mean, because the last thing to do is be trying to do some sort of dom thing, for example, with a female submissive and somebody who's a pro-feminist, social justice warrior or activist, gets all over you for daring to talk to that woman that way or something like that, because people still do that. So yeah, consensually, and I would also say carefully.
I completely agree
on this one. So hey, she completely agrees. So we're good. Next question.
I completely agree. I think, though, it's worth expanding on the idea of how to do things kind of on the DL or consensually, and also how to get the thrills, because a lot, like, doing this in public is kind of the tiptoeing that taboo line, or almost getting caught. And as we are both dominants in our relationships, so that would be our responsibility to manage our submissive's frame of mind, and allowing them that thrill of possible exposure without it actually happening and violating the consent of others. So, for example, my pet enjoys some humiliation play. One of the ways that I do that in public is I might use a word, and this is one of them, but I might use a word as innocuous as sweetie to do really fucked up, horrible things to him in private, like in bed and whatever, and say, who are you? Right in the middle of something really nasty, and make him say, I am sweetie. Right? So that when you use that in public, people think, oh, look how cute, they're using pet names. Yeah, but he knows exactly what that means and what I'm thinking at that moment. Other things include, maybe having him wear panties under his jeans. And then when he goes to a public restroom, making him, stand up at a stall or at a urinal rather than going into a stall. Now, I'm not going to go in to make sure that, like, other guys see it or whatever. It's the thrill of having to kind of sneak that through, right? Like, that's the fun of it. So there's a lot of ways to play with those things, like out in public. We've done some woods primal play, and there's a relatively popular park here near here that has a lot of hiking, but there's a couple of places where you get up just kind of over a ridge from that, and nobody's going to see you unless they've got a helicopter. Right. And you can get away, but you can still hear people, on the trail, right? So you can get away with these things if you're very careful. And it's worth being careful. It's worth planning it out if that's kind of your shtick, right? Plan out how to do that in a way that you get the thrill of it, but without actually infringing upon other people's rights to enjoy their life.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's important to remember that public play is an extension of your private play. So one is individualized, and it's things that work well for you. But two, privately, there's nobody involved but you and anyone who's consented to seeing it, and it should be the same publicly. There's nobody involved but you and anyone who has consented to seeing that. So if you're at a dinner party with friends and kinky friends that have seen you play various ways before, okay, maybe that's fine, but take it out into the woods, do something private. The thing with the bathroom, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've had to go to the bathroom, remove her panties and bring them to me, and normally what I just say is surrender your panties. And they know what that means. Now, some of them will get brave and take them off at the table. I don't care. It's up to them how they do it. Some of them are a little bit more nerve-wracking. There are those that would rather not do it that way, like, take them off at the table, but like the thrill of being naughty in front of other people, then we'll do that. I've got one sub that when she comes over to my place, she gets into uniform, which basically means stripped down and accept a thong. A black thong. Well, when we go out together in public, that's what she's wearing underneath, her clothing and stuff. And there are times when I'll tell her to surrender her uniform, and things like that. So it kind of depends, but that helps them stay in that mindset, even though we're out in public and doing things. And so for them, in a lot of cases, it's just fun to do the very, very subtle things and realize that they are being played. You are doing a power exchange scene, and no one else knows but the two of you. That is in many ways part of the thrill, is that it is so surreptitious and that people don't realize what's going on, because again, like we all know, muggles don't notice things unless they're right in front of their faces, and even then they may not notice what's going on. So they tend to not pay attention to the strange and unusual. So you just kind of do things that don't look strange and unusual, or that can kind of be camo or hidden or incognito or kinkcognito, as you will. So yeah, I mean, there are fun ways to play with it and have fun creating those things and coming up with stuff. I've done things where I've had a sub with me and she's not allowed to cross her legs, which, if you think about it, isn't major. But when their habit is, for modesty's sake, to always cross their legs, and suddenly they're not allowed to, and not only not cross them, but keep them open. Like, I don't want to see your knees touching each other. Suddenly they're in the mindset of, holy shit, I'm exposing my bits to the world. And really they're not. They're sitting at a table. Nobody can tell. But they know, and they suddenly feel exposed. That's the kink. That's the power exchange. So you can do that in ways that, don't fry the sensibilities of the nearby muggles, but yet totally extend the power exchange play from privacy into public without violating anyone's consent. And there are ways to do that. But that's what I call responsible kinkdom, is that you really got to be careful how you're doing that and putting that stuff into place. And like Nikki said, planning it out ahead of time. This it really isn't necessarily random stuff, because you don't want to get that I can't do that in public argument out in public, So.
And so another thing is, and this goes along with planning it, wear the correct clothing for easy access if necessary. Like I might wear like the top that I'm wearing right now out with Pet to dinner or to lunch or whatever. And after surreptitiously checking that nobody is looking, pull out a boob. I can pop it back in instantaneously because, I mean, it's right here, right? Like, it's easy. But planning that ahead of time makes a difference. Knowing what the possibilities are and dressing or planning for those possibilities also matters.
Yeah. And we all know Nookie likes tormenting people by pulling out her boobs and then hiding them again. That's her thing. And yeah, the rest of us just have to suffer. But but yeah, I mean,
so again, much suffering.
Plan it out ahead of time. Yeah, plan logistically, plan clothing. It's wrong, or not necessarily wrong, but it's going to be a little bit more difficult to expect somebody to remove their pit of table if they're wearing jeans. That's just,
for example.
Yeah, that's a little bit difficult to do. But I was with a partner one time, and we were at the zoo just walking around, and I told her, "Yeah, I'm gonna need you to surrender your panties," mainly because she had made the mistake of telling me she's gotten wet. I'm like, "Good, now you're gonna need to surrender your panties." So she had to go to the bathroom, give up her panties, and bring them, and just stuck them in my hand. I'm like, "Good, thank you." And I, put them in a pocket. And we go on about our business. Like, she didn't hide them or anything. She just had them crumpled up in her hand and handed them to me, which is fantastic. And I was like, "All right, you'll get them back at a time when I determine." And then we just go on about enjoying our day at the zoo. But, meanwhile, she's now wet and has no panties on. And again, it's totally in a different mindset than I was when we were watching the gorillas. So, but that's the way you extend that play. Is you kind of have fun with it like that. But yeah, plan ahead, do your due diligence when it comes to logistics, and also make sure you're adhering to consent for all involved, and especially for those who are not involved. So.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. And I think that's really key, is also be aware, because you mentioned something, the whole wet thing. Also be aware exactly how wet means. Because for some people, removing panties might mean that wherever they sit, they're leaving snail trails. And that, like, in the situation like the zoo, might not be pleasant, right? Like, so just, again, it's about planning. It's about being a couple, a team, collaborating on, what will titillate and excite, while also making sure that you've got your bases covered.
Yeah. And that's going to require a negotiation ahead of time. It's not cool to spring that on somebody when they're not prepared for it. I mean, I've done it where I will tell them, be prepared to surrender your panties, and never ask for them. Anticipation is its own form of kink. So yeah, sometimes you can plan or let them know to be prepared for that, negotiate it ahead of time, and then never do it. Because they'll spend the whole night wondering when's it going to happen. And if it doesn't, it's kind of fun to play with that. So yeah.
I think we did good. I think we answered that question. Yay!
Go us.